The Japanese ships that the fleet spotted on the way to Tokyo and sunk, were any of you guys aware of that going on? Did any of you witness the Navy sinking those ships? And was there any signal from those ships back to Tokyo that you guys were on the way?
Well, as far as we were all concerned, first we heard of anything was gunfire, and we all rushed up on deck, and we could see action some miles from the ship, and it had already been engaged by the other carrier, by destroyers on gunfire, and then we were reported, and while we were all standing around wondering what's going on, that's when the word came, Army crew, man your aircraft, and that's the end of it as far as we're concerned. By the time we battled our way down to BX to load up on cigarettes and candy bars, over the closing all the damn doors and up and down stairs, by the time we got in the airplane, it was an hour had passed. All big pandemonium. The 16 airplanes were spread out over the whole deck for the whole trip. And then as on the run-in, they talk about the heavy weather. In the last 24 hours, the two carriers and the cruisers were running pretty fast, and the oilers and the destroyers, the water was too heavy for their speed, stayed behind, so that we were the ones that were going. And then they moved the airplanes, the 16 airplanes were moved to the aft of the deck, so that the lead airplane, Doolittle's airplane, was adjacent or even with the island. The rest of us were behind. And that was, we started in, all of us started from the same spot next to the island, but not behind the island, because they were afraid we might veer into it. So we all used the same spot, and it was about 380 feet. 380 feet. The old man, when we all watched this, obviously, and he took off. He was airborne well before the end of the deck, and we watched and we passed the message to everyone that we changed our procedure, and amongst what we did, pass the word to go to zero trim, because we'd used everything back. So we went to zero trim, and everyone was able to clear nicely, except that we said with Blossom's airplane, apparently, as during the run, with a few seconds, the flaps withdrew, so he went off with the flaps being retracted. In the 25, the flap handle is between the two seats, and there was just a small detent for the up and down and the neutral. Later they put a positive stop there. So it's very obvious that maybe someone was shaking a little bit and might have dislodged the flap handle. So he took off really without flaps. And Dave didn't know that, but that's all right.
He was in the back.
Another thing they did in the preparation is they centered B-25 in the middle of the carrier, and that left 7 feet on the right side to the island and 7 feet to the edge of the deck on the left side. They drew a white line down for the main left gear and one for the nose wheel for the assist the pilot in guiding the airplane.
How did you all navigate, and from the time you left the carrier, and how accurate was your navigation in terms of when you crossed onto Japanese territory?
When we took off about 600 miles out, it was solid overcast and stormy weather. But as we proceeded in towards Japan, that stormy weather cleared up and we had clear skies for about the last 2 hours into Japan itself. They gave us our position, approximate position when we took off. So we just dead reckoned until we got to the sun where we could take sun lines. And that's what I did. And the sun gave us course lines, and I used those and flew right into Tokyo. Had no trouble at all. The rest of the day was just dead reckoning. It was a nice sunny day for most of the day until we got way down very late in the afternoon or early evening, the southern tip of the Japanese islands. Then we headed due west across the China Sea. And we had a nice sunny weather until then, and we could see way up ahead a big storm building up. Well, we took what we call a wind drift and discovered to our great joy that instead of getting the anticipated headwind across the China Sea, this storm situation gave us a tailwind, and that made all the difference. If we had not gotten that strong tailwind across the China Sea late in the afternoon, early evening, most of our planes would not have reached China. But that allowed all of our planes to at least reach the China coast. Most of them were running out of gas right there. This was nighttime now, and we had to pull up into that storm and fly into it. 11 planes of us did this, and when we ran out of gas, we bailed out in the storm. Plane number 9, we were in the air 15 and a half hours. It varied with some planes, of course. Pardon?
13 and a half.
13 and a
Yeah,
half?
about 13 and a half.
Dick, do you remember how long you were in the air?
Yes, 13 hours.
13 hours? Davey, do you remember?
13 hours.
13 hours again?
Did you see any aircraft between the time you took off and the time you touched down again?
I'll be very quick. En route, 2 or 3 hours off the carrier, I met an airplane. I was about 2,000 feet, and broken cloud, and an airplane passed me going the other way with a big red star on it. End of story. That's the only airplane I ever saw. These guys all saw it.
After we took off from the carrier, I'd say it was about midway between where we took off and Japan. We passed underneath a Japanese flying boat that looked like it was about 8,000 feet. And Paul Leonard, who was the gunner in the back, kept reporting at his position, and apparently they didn't even see us because they kept going.